Hey there, I'm not much of a video editor, so I'll edit out that little hiccup I had when I changed the screen. And if you check out this right here, Roman numeral 3, this is the right side of our notes now. It's kind of a classic and it's idealized, and we talked about that in class. In other words, it doesn't perfectly look like this. But if you look at a predator-prey relationship, again, let's use something local that we saw here, had some pictures of on our field right here at our campus. Coyote, say, and gopher. Now, a coyote will eat a lot more than just gophers. They will occasionally go after a goose. They do a great job of keeping the rodent population down. They will eat, rats, mice, things like that. But let's kind of simplify it, keep it to coyote and gopher. And if you check out the coyote gopher population, as you have the prey animals, which are represented by the green arrow here, as their numbers increase, and again, there's a key over here was the green represent the prey. As their numbers increase, the coyote are having a party with it, like, hoo-hoo, it's a gopher party out there. They're having a gopher barbecue. Their numbers go up too. However, once the prey animals start decreasing in number, the coyote obviously wouldn't have enough to eat, and then their numbers would come down as well. It kind of follows this pattern. Now, there's other factors, of course, that can affect it. For example, let's say it's not a good growing year. Let's say we're not watering the field out there anymore and there's not quite as much grass for the gophers to eat. That would obviously affect the prey population. But the point is this classic curve and the relationship between these two things. This will get into something called coevolution that we see later on. This relationship is a classic in biology. As the prey goes up, the predators go up to a point, but then as the prey population comes down because the predators are doing so well, obviously the predator population has to go down as well because there's not enough food to eat. Finally, we checked out a little bit on Jurassic Park, and this is the part where I had to give you the answers online. Now remember, this is a Jurassic Park movie number 1 that I showed a clip from where it shows the DNA. That's the Jurassic Park movie where the people are stuck on an island and they get eaten by dinosaurs little by little. Not to be confused with the next Jurassic Park movie where there's a bunch of dinosaurs on an island that are eating people. Or wait, the third Jurassic Park movie where there's a bunch of people and dinosaurs on an island and the dinosaurs are eating. Wait, I guess all the movies are pretty much the same. Well, if you check out the Jurassic Park movie, the first question is, if there were huge gaps in the DNA sequence, why would putting the frog DNA not work? Remember, DNA is an extraordinarily long molecule, and it is the one that has the code for making all of our traits of every living thing. It would be a little bit like this. Let's say this book right here represents the DNA that you need to make a dinosaur. This is my old college physics book from my Uncle Howard. Let's just say you found this book and unfortunately it had been, say, burned in a fire. It was an old book that had been sitting around on the shelf, and you only had, instead of a book this thick, you only had a third of the pages. You couldn't possibly say, well, you know what? Instead of using those third of the pages that we don't have, we'll just fill it in with some other book. We'll just take Origin of Species, that's a science book too. We'll take the parts of this book that we need and fill in the rest of this physics book here. It's pretty obvious it wouldn't make any sense. In Jurassic Park, they try and say they're going to take a little bit of a frog DNA, fill in the gaps on the dinosaur DNA. Doesn't work. You guys already know that the DNA is an extraordinarily long molecule. You can't just fill in gaps. Every time you change a little bit of the wording, you're changing the proteins that are coded for. You're changing the instructions. You change the instructions, it will be either biological gibberish or you'll get something completely different. The next question that was up here was, when was the Jurassic? If we're talking about Jurassic Park, we should probably know when it is. We go into geology a little bit more in detail later, but basically it was 145 to about 200 million years ago, roughly. And then finally, last little one here, what probably killed off the dinosaurs? You may or may not remember that we talked about the fossil layers. And we showed a picture that looks something like this. I'm going to pull up one more screen. One of the rare times I go to 3 screens here. But we talked about the fossil layers. One of the really cool stories that we get into a little bit more in detail when we're talking about biology is, as you remember from one of our previous notes, the law of superposition. As you go down the layers in sedimentary rock, you're going back in time, you're looking at fossils. There's a couple local scientists right over here from UC Berkeley, Louis and Walter Alvarez, a father-son team, really awesome. And they were noticing that at one of these layers, right about the layer, the KT boundary we call it, right about the layer where we go from dinosaurs, 65 million years ago, where we go from dinosaurs to basically no more dinosaurs. There was some event that happened in a relatively short period of time that wiped out every animal on the planet that was bigger than about the size of a dog, roughly anything bigger than about 35, 40 pounds. What we think probably happened, and here's your answer for the notes, but this is going to get into more detail later when we talk about producers and consumers. We think that right around here, roughly around 65 million years ago, an asteroid struck and it wiped out the food chain from the bottom up. Remember, going back to the beginning of the lecture, the producers. Once you have an asteroid strike one part of the planet, often students ask, well, wait a second, it might have killed the dinosaurs there, but why all over the planet? It's throwing up so much dust into the atmosphere that you're reducing photosynthesis, or the available light for photosynthesis. The producers decrease in number. If the producers decrease in number, remember our pyramid back there? They decrease in number. You can't support as many herbivores, and then you can't support as many primary and secondary predators. So we'll get into that more later when we talk about habitats, but it's really amazingly cool that they have this tiny piece of evidence for an asteroid striking at this one place. They could tell because it had this layer of iridium, which is a type of element that you don't find too much of on Earth, but you find a lot of in asteroids. And they were able to put together from that likely, possibly, this was one of the reasons that dinosaurs went extinct. Okay, there's your answers for the end of our lecture today in class. We'll get this out there posted, and don't forget to take your Week 10 test as we wrap up trimester number 1. There'll also be an optional extra credit test posted out there on Friday. I encourage you to give that one a shot. Talk to you later. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.